I talk a lot about ruckus makers doing school different. And part of that point of view is baked into it. You're going to run experiments. Some of these experiments are going to go wildly successful and you'll keep them going. Some of them are going to fail, but I love to say there's no such thing as failure, only learning. So today's episode is an experiment. I asked my good friend Mitch Weathers, the founder of Organized Binder, to join me here. And I told him to do some homework. He was to identify some trends he's seen in education. I did the same, and then we're going to discuss those trends. So like I said, this is an experiment of a show. I hope you enjoy the new sort of package that we'll do from time to time on the Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast. Now, you already know that this show ranks in the top 1% of over 4 million shows worldwide. And the whole point of it is to help you do school different, to reimagine education even within a traditional setting, so that you create a campus experience worth showing up for. You probably know Mitch. Again, he's over at Organized Binder. He has the best-selling book, Executive Functions for Every Classroom. I'm Danny, host of this show, also best-selling author, and it's our pleasure to bring you today's content. We'll be back in just a second with the main episode, but first, let's get in some messages from our show sponsors. For over 30 years, ODP Business Solutions has helped schools transform from whiteboards to smartboards. Why? Because when you get the right tools, everyone wins. Visit odpbusiness.com/education to revolutionize your school's learning spaces. If you could differentiate instruction in 20 minutes or less, would you do it for your students? Well, you can with IXL. Over 1 million teachers use IXL because it empowers them to use effective data-informed instruction. Get started today at ixl.com/leaders. This episode is sponsored by Express Ability, the team that's making AI actually useful for school leaders. From automating repetitive tasks to answering policy questions 24/7, they're helping districts save time and stress. Want to see what's possible? Visit K12ability.com today. That's K12ability.com. Yeah, you're saying hair and makeup, does it look good? I mean, I think all right, but a good place to start. Where's your red hat?
Well, you organized this meetup and didn't mention bringing the red hats. So
I don't know why I would have to mention it.
I know. Anytime we're recording, I should bring my red hat. That's my bet. And as I mentioned, it's actually cool enough here in Northern California that I could be wearing it. And I only have a few more days this year before.
You said 49
degrees?
Yeah.
No, the high is 72.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's 51 here. Should we do a whole show on weather and just watch how people don't listen after that? Hey, we're going to do a podcast today about weather.
More importantly, speaking of listenership, you should tell the story of the red hats real quick. Just real quick.
All right. I'll do my best.
Excuse me.
So Mitch and I are in New Mexico, Taos, New Mexico. We get out of our rented car and we are off to hike because both of us love being in nature. We love being active. And we're out there going to go to the hike. And we cross paths, I think, with a couple. If I remember correctly, it was just one couple. It was a guy with a big, long beard. He could have been at the Capitol January 6th. I don't know, but he had a long beard, and he had a girlfriend. Do you remember, was she cute or not? I don't remember. I think she might have been, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's just say she was. It's better for the story. With a very attractive girlfriend, and I remember just chatting with him real quick about the trail. And if I remember correctly, they weren't into talking at all. Am I right so far?
Yeah, I felt that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And then they go off. I think you forgot something. So I remember we're walking now back to the car. We get whatever you forgot. Maybe it's probably your water bottle. Could it have been an officially sponsored Organized Binder
nice.
Mirror? Is that how you mirror water bottle? Unofficial sponsor. But I'm guessing that's what you forgot. We grab your water bottle and then we're on the trail. And if I remember correctly, we're hiking the trail It's beautiful. New Mexico, there's
Really nice.
water, right? Getting into the
Gorgeous.
hills, into the mountains. And I think we just start ripping on these guys, right? Like, because usually, sort of in hiking culture, you say hi to people. You know, how's your hike
Usually,
going?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Talk to
Where'd
them
you
and stuff.
come from? Where are you going?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think
But I think
we caught up to them. We caught up to them.
you're making all this up, I think.
No,
But
I'm not. But don't stop my flow. I'm not making, this is all 100% real. We catch up to them, Mitch, and they're there again. And we're like, hey guys, how's the hike going? And the dude's just like, that
yeah.
was it. And I think
Yeah.
they were kind of having a fight and they were done. They were leaving. They were going back to the
Yeah,
car.
that's right. It seemed like a
Yeah.
better idea. Remember that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't know, should we call the police? Is she safe? Like, there's a lot going through our heads at this point. I mean, this guy looks a little scary. So then we keep hiking. We decide we don't call the police. We don't intervene. Don't want to get in trouble and whatever. It's their life. So we keep hiking, but then we start making fun of this group because, again, usually people say hi on hikes and that kind of thing. And the story we were making up, which I'm guessing is totally accurate, is that this guy was super jealous and envious of us
Because of our
because
red beanies.
not just that, it wasn't
I
just the
thought
red beanies.
I thought it
Because
was.
no, dude, no, because we made a voice for him and all this stuff, and he was like, "Duh," he said, "Don't talk to those guys in the red beanies that are extremely attractive and fit." And like we were talking about that because we're both very good looking, fit guys, and we were saying this out loud, right? Just thinking
Thinking
it's
no one
just
else is around.
no one else is around. And then turning a corner was actually a drop dead gorgeous woman hiking on the trail. And she's like, "You guys do look adorable." She said that, remember?
In your red beanies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that part. The rest of it,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I just
No.
remember just joking about it, thinking we're by ourselves way out because we were in Taos for the live event.
Yeah. For sure. First live event.
Yeah. And yeah, there was no one parked. Remember, it was a pretty remote hike, but then she was like, "Oh, you guys are so adorable in your red beanies."
So adorable in the red beanies. It was actually so remote. I think we actually were wondering if we were trespassing because there were some signs like
Yeah.
don't access this kind of thing, but we did go on the right trail. We had a blast, but that was
Beautiful
great
hike.
for my ego. It felt good that an attractive young lady was like, "You guys look adorable," and who knows whatever happened to the bearded man and his girlfriend, but
They lived
um,
happily ever after, I'm pretty sure.
probably they have twins, triplets, and all sorts of stuff,
Nice.
right? So great, they got a great family. And then we wear our red hats everywhere. We wore it there. We
So
wore it
that's
to
the
the
backstory is
restaurant.
anytime we get, but even multiple trips now, like if we're going to be in person in real life, we bring
Yeah,
our red beanies and we take selfies.
right.
And I
And
think
so
we have quite a little collection going different places around the country.
now I don't know if this story is true. I thought about getting a red beanie tattoo in Nashville. Did we talk about that, or
I
was
think
that
we didn't
just
talk about that.
okay?
No,
So that's not just
incorrect.
a story. Yeah, okay.
No, I think
All right.
we joked about it.
That would
We
be
both
really
have tattoos
hilarious.
already, so it wouldn't be like
Yeah,
if that was your first tattoo, be like, that's
that'd be a
interesting. I
bit
guess
weird.
you could,
Yeah, for sure.
just wear the red
All right.
beanie. I don't know if you need to get a
Yeah, right
tattoo of
on.
it.
Yeah. So if it's your first time listening or watching to the Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast, I'm Danny. This is Mitch, and this is a new thing that we're experimenting with. Back in the day, I think it was I don't know if it was when I lived in Belgium or Netherlands, Scotland. I think we had some fun shows, and we wanted to
Yeah.
bring them back.
You were in Glasgow at the time. You were
Yeah.
in Scotland.
So there's a few reasons why. Like one, I want to. Well, there's actually only one reason why. I want to talk. I really only want to talk to people I really enjoy talking to on the podcast as much as possible. And I think if there's actually a leadership lesson for the ruckus maker listening or watching, it's when you're leading whatever it is, organization, school, right? In the case of a ruckus maker, you really should do what you do best and try to delegate like the other things. And the things that you do best hopefully should be filling up your cup, right? And enjoyable. And so I thought it'd be great to chat with you. I get so many pitches, people with books, people with second books that want to talk
Hey,
about those books. Yeah.
second books.
Yeah, no. And it's like it gets exhausting. And then also, all sorts of people too. Like I get pitched for like how to save on taxes for your business to be in. It's like, do your homework.
Someone's not doing their, not even
Somebody
homework,
wrote,
just 30 seconds of reading. Like, is this, am I a good, like, I'm on a lot of podcasts, right? I'm not a host, but I get
you're on a
that's an
lot.
honor. That's an honor. But I always ask even them, like, hey, is this a good fit for your audience? Because if it is,
Right.
great. Let's
Right.
chat. If then someone else, because
Yeah, do a little bit of research, right? And to be honest, we are going to talk about education in just a second, but I got to find this email because this person reached out. I don't know if I could find it fast enough, and she asked if she could be on the show, and I said Alba said no, and yeah, who's my dog, right?
I actually have my dog Lemon's right here sleeping next to me. She came to the office with me.
Alba's
today.
right there. She's sleeping. So yeah, I can't find it fast enough. I don't want to bore the audience. But essentially the lady had good copy. Copy is just writing in a persuasive way to get people to take action. And I could tell she put some effort into reaching out to me. But again, she wanted to talk about something that didn't have to do with school leadership. And it wasn't weather. And it wasn't having red hats or coming across people on hikes. So I was like, why do you want to be on the show? And she's like, feel free to say no. Like you could even tell me your dog said no. And I said, Alba does say no, and here's a picture of Alba. And I sent her a picture of Alba. And she wrote back, and I just deleted it. But that was that. So, anyways.
It's not
All right.
this.
It's not this. All right. Let's get in the show. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, we're doing it, but okay. I prepared a few trends. First trend, number one, is I came across a statement from Bill Gates, and I don't know if this is going to be like the format of the show, but the idea is, are you buying or selling this idea, right? Bill Gates believes that within the next 10 years, AI will significantly reduce the need for human experts. And basically, he said AI will replace doctors and teachers in the next 10 years. Are you buying or selling that?
I don't believe it, at least with teachers. So
You're
does that mean
selling.
I'm selling?
Okay.
Okay, I'm selling.
All right.
I didn't know if that meant like I'm trying to sell that to somebody, like, hey, this is the truth. Or
No.
if I'm buying it, like, yeah.
Yeah, buying means
I'm
like
selling.
I
I'm
believe
selling.
it. Yeah, you're
Wait.
selling.
That's not true.
Okay. Well, why?
Well, I think
This
it's
is Bill
not,
Gates. He's like smart and way more
Yeah.
successful than both of us.
Yeah, no doubt.
He said it.
There's no question in my mind that AI, of course, is going to influence teaching and learning in that process. I think the question that it brings up is, what are we teaching? And if you're the notion of like it's content experts, of course you can rely, just ask this thing, boom, I got the information. So I think we have to ponder, and this is kind of one of the trends that's really of interest to me now. I think it dovetails kind of nicely is, what is the purpose of school in general, K-12 or even higher ed or pre-K, and how is that evolving in light of AI? How should that evolve even if AI never came along? I mean, there's definitely some of that there, but when we look at the jobs of the future, you'll hear it said like we don't even know what they are yet. They're not even imagined. And so that to me isn't something to be scared of or run from. Same thing with AI, but to say, well, then what are we actually preparing students for? And that's where I think that it gets really interesting. So where I look at it is if I'm preparing if the purpose of school is this kind of holistic development of young human beings and to be, functional and productive members of a society and whatnot. But when we look at as a pathway to work or career, and we don't know what those are yet, then the only thing outside of basic literacy and mathematics, like, what are we doing? Because we don't know what we're preparing the person for. So this knowledge we're imparting in terms of content and standards and whatnot, not that we shouldn't have those things, but it's more about transferable competencies. So if I find myself in a new environment, and that we could keep it very simple, like that could just be my first year in college. I'm in this whole new environment with far less support. What have I developed as a learner, that capacity or agency that allows me to thrive in this new environment? And I think that's where all of this conversation needs to go. So teachers will never be replaced. I think what we need to replace or consider is what we're teaching, what we're equipping
Yeah,
students with. What do you think?
yeah. Well, Seth Godin, he wrote that book, Stop Stealing Dreams, right? He has a famous, TED Talk on it, and the ebook is free. Maybe if my team can find the free PDF, possibly we'll link it up in the show notes. But also, you could just Google "Stop Stealing Dreams." You'll find the PDF. Like I said, it's free. And his work has really inspired me. I mean, that's why we're called ruckus makers, right? Like I got that from him. He says, "Go make a ruckus all the time." And I love the way he sees the world. And within his books, a lot of times he's asking two questions: who's it for? What's it for? And in Stop Stealing Dreams, that was the question, like, what is school for? Right? That's what he was trying to answer, and or really, you know, I guess push the reader to consider for himself, herself. And so I think that's a good take. I'm selling the full replacement of teachers in 10 years. But I think what I'm buying is sort of a nuance of it, which is maybe schools will need fewer teachers in the future, right? Maybe it'll be sort of teachers super powered by AI, and a teacher as guide, as mentor, right? As the person helping you develop into the human being, and some of the content and the practicing might be AI, right? And therefore you could have potentially a bigger classroom, uh, and or in places that it's difficult to attract educators, right? Rural, out of nowhere area, and they want to have some kind of like language program or whatever, right? Or maybe computer science, whatever that's hard to attract, right? Or special ed teachers, like accommodations and these kind of things. So you'll still need a human there to help facilitate. But in terms of like the bandwidth and the instructional redesign and that kind of stuff, I could see it working in tandem, in partnership. So, yeah, really interesting. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Gates a lot smarter and more successful than us, but I think it's going to change. Not going to be totally replaced. I think that's ridiculous, but it's certainly going to change. So I think that's enough. Anything else you want to say on this trend, or you want to
No,
move
I
on?
think it's interesting in terms of a trend of, my organization with Organized Binder and executive functioning work. We work with a lot of rural districts, and one of the hardest things for a district, if it is fairly remote, even
Mm-hmm.
if they pay well, it's just attracting talent, and keeping people close. Like it's interesting,
Right.
some smaller rural districts will be close enough to kind of a larger metropolitan area where, of course, there's more people living there, and
Yeah.
teachers,
Does
and particularly
Coalinga
new
count as rural,
teachers.
or I've never
Oh
been there?
yeah,
You
for
you work
sure.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Closest city metropolitan area would be Fresno, California, and it's 45 minutes to an hour drive, and it's just a challenge of people even find a job they love, a school they love. The districts, it's small enough but big enough to have infrastructure. It's amazing in a lot of ways, but keeping people there where a 45-minute to an hour drive gets taxing after a while. And
Yeah.
so that's interesting.
It's gonna
AI is a
happen.
supplement to some. Yeah, I guess where I'm at, with the AI trend, when you boil down education, in my opinion,
Mm,
to its raw elements, it's a messy human to human endeavor, which means relationships matter. So when I hear bigger class sizes and AI is going to make, not saying that's not true, but where do the relationships with kids land in that new reality? I think we
sure,
have to keep
sure.
sight of that, hold on to that.
100%. And listen, I'm not trying to say like, teachers are bad or we should like fire teachers
Yes,
or
you
like,
are. That's
no,
exactly what I heard you say.
or replace them all. But I am thinking the use case of a coalinga or a rural remote area. We know also it's very hard to attract doctors there too, right? So you have a medical emergency or whatever, and you need help, you're screwed, because you have to go far to get that help. Well, what if you can be diagnosed and that kind of stuff, right? And get Obviously that's not a surgery, but in terms of like identifying what's going on with you and if there's a solution that could be found and then sent to a pharmacy quickly. So same thing with education. You have trouble keeping, retaining, attracting people to a space. Now you have, and maybe it's not like teacher roles, but they're hiring what we call facilitators or whatever. And they're the ones there for the human and the relational part of education that will never go away. But
Right.
content and intervention, acceleration, that kind of stuff could be more automated. Maybe I don't know. I think it's interesting,
Be
and
interesting.
for places that listen, like I'm talking, Demetrius up. Well, I don't want to say where he is, but a number of mastermind members, right? Massive budget shortfalls where this is crazy to me, right? People aren't coming into education, teachers and administrators, right? Like we know the pipeline is dry, it's dead. There's people coming in, but it's not what's needed for the retirements coming.
Sure,
And
sure.
within that reality, there's districts with massive budget shortfalls laying off hundreds of teachers, right? That's crazy. How are you laying off teachers when we need more teachers? That doesn't make sense. And so I think places where they're struggling just affordability, there might be a model, right, where you're supplementing in that way, and that's the only way to actually make the whole thing work. So yeah, we'll see. I'm not promoting that. It's just the future I'm predicting.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I think we've talked enough about that trend. Trend two, speaking of AI, and I don't know that this is like 100% fair, but new Department of Ed leader, Linda McMahon, former wrestler, right? This is reality. So by the time I should check when this is releasing because we're recording on April 15th. And I think this comes out, if I look really, really fast, it's coming out May 7th. So not too bad. But she was just recently at ASU GSV, I think is the tech conference, right? Have you ever been there?
Here in California, I haven't attended that one. I know a
Okay.
slew of
Yeah.
people who were there.
Yeah. Tons of people. And so I saw an X and she's just getting dragged for it. But two times, have you heard this? Do you know where I'm
Mm.
going? You
I
don't know.
I
Okay.
haven't even. Yeah.
Breaking news, right? And for anybody that doesn't connect with news, this will be new to you too. So, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, she kept referring to AI as A1. You heard, yeah. So, a school system that's going to make sure that first graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching in every year. That's a wonderful thing. Kids are sponges; they just absorb everything. It wasn't all that long ago, or excuse me, we're going to. It wasn't all that long ago. It was we're going to have internet in our schools. Now let's see A1 and how can that be helpful? So kudos, first of all, kudos to A1 because they jumped on that. And then as you should, right? They jumped
Like
on it and said,
the
right,
brand, the company,
yeah,
A1. Oh my
absolutely.
gosh,
That's great
hilarious.
marketing. And they've got good people running their social media. But here's what I want to say, okay? This is why the problem with social media and like far right, far left, they both do this. And I want to say naughty, naughty on you. So, literally 30 seconds before the clip that went viral, where it is stupid to call A1 or AI A1, right? Like, don't do that. But 30 seconds even before that, she said, AI development. Like, and she was talking about it in the correct way, right? So I want to point that out for our viewers and listeners because it wasn't like she just like doesn't know AI. It is bizarre that then in a few minutes of short amount of time she kept calling AI A1. Maybe she wanted steak. She could have been hungry. A1 might be her favorite sauce. But that's the worst thing is that people take clips. They could take clips of this show and
Sure.
in our
Drag
little
us.
yeah, right. So like
Yeah.
and but that's the thing and then they go viral, right? But I don't know. I really I wonder why though she kept calling it A1, right? So I have highlighted that she correctly identified AI as AI. But then she
Okay.
had this slip a couple times and I don't know. I
My
have a
only
I have an
thought is
assertion, but
it's,
yeah, what do you
yeah,
think?
reading a script,
Hmm.
possibly. And, just because someone holds a political office doesn't make them a
Doesn't make them
natural
perfect. Yeah.
keynote speaker. And maybe there
Sure.
were nerves involved. I don't know. I haven't, me in social. I haven't seen the video clip. Don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
won't. And
No,
that's
probably
okay.
won't.
But yeah, especially at that conference, that gathering, it's kind of a 2-for-1. There's like this
Yeah.
air show thing. Like it's increasingly becoming like a center of the universe for ed tech. So it's kind
Right,
of
right.
a to slip up there, you know.
And
I
what do
could
you
see
think
how people.
hosts, like, shame on them? Should they have said, Linda,
I don't know. I
you know,
think, yeah,
secretary?
people running it,
Yeah, like not
but
A1, not a
that's
steak
not
sauce.
A1. That would have been hilarious though if someone ran up to the podium and put a bottle of A1
That
right
would
in
have
the
been good.
moment on the.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's just in our current political climate, it just doesn't bode well for any. I mean,
Yeah.
probably
And
got
like,
drugged that much harder because of it.
right. And they jumped all over it and then, tried to make her look stupid for it. And like I said, 30 seconds before she named it correctly. And that's why you just got to be critical of everything you see on social media because people are, they're pushing an agenda. But, some here that I want to ask, and let me know if you don't want to touch this, but, she's 76, right? So I don't know. Would you want your kid's principal being 76, 78, 80, running the school? And should they hold, big offices and presidents and stuff like that? I mean, we've had two presidents now. I don't even remember how old Biden was, but
Oh,
we saw how old he was, and
hmm
Trump's old. So anything you want to say about that? It doesn't matter,
wow.
like left. I'm not saying left or right. I'm talking age. That's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah. I mean, I definitely think there's certain jobs. I had a friend one time that I was like in between him. He's since passed, but he was probably 10 years older than me, and his son was like 10 years younger than me or something. And my wife and I had gotten married, and we had been married quite a while. We waited like 11 years before we even tried to have kids because we were
Mm,
married really young and just thought, hey, we need to figure ourselves out and all that. And I remember him telling me, he was like, hey, I know your plan and everything, but he pointed to his kid and he's like, this is a young guy's job. Like, don't wait too long because this takes like a ton of energy.
yeah,
That makes me think about that. With that said, I've never held
I'm screwed.
office, and and that may not be true. And I've never actually been a school leader by choice, so I
Yeah,
can't speak to that with any authority. But what I can say is, from what I've observed, is those roles take a tremendous amount of energy, but they're with age, not always, but oftentimes comes wisdom through experience.
100%.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's something I really appreciate about Miriam's culture and coming from Zimbabwe and Shona culture specifically. Like uh, the way she views elders and family in general, right, is different than how
Totally
how
different.
how I'm used to, and that's been such a blessing, right, in my life. It's added so much, in terms of high regard of elders and taking care of them and learning, from their experience and that kind of thing. So,
Mhm.
yeah, cool. All right. Well, enough of A1 AI. I think. What do you think? Should we talk about sponsors? Do that and then hit some more trends.
Sure.
Okay. And by the way, the production team will remove you from this part so you can dance, make faces, or even
Do
go
anything
off
I want.
anything you want, or you could go off camera. It doesn't matter. Just give me a second. But
Just
we have
open
some
my
wonderful
mouth.
sponsors. Organized Binder is unofficial, so I should get you a Ruckus Maker water bottle and make you
You
drink
should.
that. Yeah,
You
but
actually did at one point, and I carry that
oh you
everywhere
oh you threw it
because like
out.
that's where I got the idea.
Yeah, that's nice.
I left it in Chicago, which if I'm gonna leave it anywhere, I
Yeah,
left it at
hometown.
a school. I could tell you the story. But
Oh yeah, cool.
you inspired the size of that water bottle because your
I
water
I've
bottle,
inspired the size of a lot of water bottles.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
something to. That's a trend.
it
Anyway,
is,
go
and
ahead.
I'm very proud. Yeah. So we have real
Talk about
sponsors.
your sponsors.
Yeah. What makes an assessment effective? I would argue giving teachers access to quick, reliable, and useful results that inform the next best steps for teaching. And that's where IXL really stands out. Teachers get powerful insights into student performance on a daily basis so they can address issues the moment they arise. Imagine that, adjusting instruction in real time before it's too late. Your teachers have a tool that helps them be even more effective, and your students grow and grow. Check it out for yourself at ixl.com/leaders. And believe it or not, Mitch, I was recording right before this, so this isn't in the sponsor read, but it's related to IXL. The guy's name is William Groovy. He's really cool, doing stuff in AI. He has Groovy Education, and he's now helping
That's cool.
districts like implement, AI type stuff. And he said after we ended the recording, he's like, I loved IXL. And I was like, dude, you should have said that on the show, right? But he's
Hmm.
like, anytime I could do math with IXL, it was just great because it did, you know, change in real time based on his level of development, and he found it interesting and challenging. So,
Hmm. Cool.
like I said, not in the sponsor rate, but more authentic. So go to ixl.com/leaders. How about that? ODP Business Solutions, formerly Office Depot Business Solutions Division, has been a trusted partner for schools for 30 years. At ODP Business Solutions, we're by your side to meet your evolving education needs. Remember that feeling when you wanted to upgrade your learning spaces, but that budget said, maybe next year? Here's what most people don't know. ODP Business Solutions doesn't just offer competitive pricing, we give you access to negotiated cooperative contracts that maximize every dollar. Want proof? We helped Baldwin School District transform their entire campus while staying under budget. How did we do it? By combining smart design with smarter purchasing. From essential supplies to cutting edge tech, from sustainable cleaning solutions to flexible furniture, we're your one stop shop to do school different. And the best part, you could get it all from one single supplier. This helps you simplify ordering and streamline budgeting while staying compliant with easy access to cooperative contracts. However you want to advance, ODP Business Solutions has 30 years of experience helping districts like yours get ahead. Visit ODP Business Solutions/education to learn more. Every school leader wants to spend more time on real leadership, not resetting passwords, answering the same questions, or getting buried in admin tasks. That's where expressibility comes in. They're building secure AI powered tools that actually work in schools, from privacy scrubbed chatbots to automations that lift the daily load on your team. They move fast, they care about data safety, and they've got a track record of helping districts work smarter, not harder. If your staff is overloaded or your systems are stuck in 2008, Expressibility can help. Visit K12ability.com and start turning busy work to breakthrough. That's K12ability.com. We're back.
Glad to be
So
back.
glad to be back. And the last trend I have for us, do you still advise teaching as a profession? This was a trending article in the Reddit teachers community, and there were a lot of spicy takes in there.
Curious, what's being said? What do you?
It's interesting. But listen to this. This person, like, all right. So the person's asking, like, should we advise to be teachers? And this person responds, similar to medical school. What? Let's just stop
Their
there.
opener.
Yeah,
Their opener.
like high school teacher. Do you want to bet that's a high school teacher?
Yes,
Yeah,
100%.
100%. Big ego. Similar to medical school, when I was training for my education degree, I'd say you should only go into teaching if you can't imagine doing anything else. It is difficult, morale killing, okay, and not especially financially rewarding, similar to medical school, or even stable anymore. I sometimes question the impact I make, although ultimately it is a career that suits me well. Lots of other ways to spend one's time. By the way, I bet that teacher sucks. I'm just guessing, but are you buying or selling that teacher sucks?
I'm pleading the fifth on that one. I don't
See,
know.
I want you to have some opinions on this show.
Yeah, I do. My opinion is I don't think teaching. Of course, you could guide young people towards a career or
No,
the
no, no,
second
not
career.
buying or selling like if teaching is a good career to advise. I'm saying the person who made that comment, do you think that teacher is any good as a teacher? I
I have
know
no
nothing
idea.
about them other than
I know that's all completely speculative. How
I
do
bet they suck. I bet they suck. Just because the attitude, right?
Yeah,
It seems like a sucky attitude.
yeah. I just think teaching is one of those. It can almost like plague you. Like if you're built for it, if you're
Yeah,
wired for it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you find yourself at the right like your zone of genius, right? Like if
Yeah.
I had gone into early elementary, I probably would have left in a year or two because I spent lots of time in my mom's second grade classroom and it was exhausting for me. But she would say the same thing about my ninth grade classroom. Like, oh my gosh, how do you deal with these 15-year-olds, that whole thing. But I still miss it like
Yeah.
every
Totally.
day. And yet I'll visit, I visit schools all the time and I'm reminded of how relentless the pace, but you acclimate and get used to it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I was just visiting my best friend's soon to be son in law, his classroom, just to give some feedback. He had read my book, my first book, and he was implementing some strategies and wanted me to come see. And I go up to this little middle school and small little town here in Northern California and sitting in the back. And I'm like, this kid's a freaking teaching wizard. I mean, he's a genius at what he was doing. He's teaching math and the engagement levels, big middle school classrooms. I was like, damn, this kid, he's in year one. And I'm like it would be immoral for me to advise him away from teaching just because he's one of those people that has to do it. So that's what I think that's the conversation. I think you got to try it. And if it fits, it's hard to shake. At least that was my experience. And if you
Yeah.
know that, so you walk into classrooms and you're like, whoa, this person understands this job.
Mm.
And then you walk into others and you're like, what's happening in here? You may know your content, but
Mm-hmm.
there's this whole other hidden curriculum thing going on that you either get or you kind of don't. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I'd agree
I'm
with your Reddit friend there. It's relentless. It
not my
may
friend.
not
It's
pay
just a
well,
comment.
So
Here's the thing. I'm buying teaching as a profession still. There's certainly, if you're going into it for financial rewards, right? You're obviously going to be sorely disappointed, but there's much more to life than, making a whole bunch of money. You need to make enough where you can live, and if you have a family, support the family and that kind of thing. But the things that I love being in the classroom, you talked about the human element. I love that. The relationships, right, with your
yeah.
students and your colleagues. Some of my best friends, right, were former teachers. I'm assuming, I'm now doing different stuff in business, but that's going to happen anywhere. You'll have good relationships. But a lot of cultures and in the space of school was fun. And I think that's because the raw element that connected them all is having students there, right? People that go into corporate, I don't know that they would describe their culture as fun unless it's intentionally built that way. And most of them are not, right? Those are
Right.
kind of like soul crushing, paper pushing type of jobs where you're just like, what am I? Does my life, does my profession, does this mean anything? And the answer is no, no, right? And in school, usually the answer is an emphatic yes, unless you really have some really terrible leadership, right? And show me another profession where you can see immediately that you're making an impact and that your work matters. You see it in the eyes of your students, no matter what age, it's part of. And there's students today, because of social media, that still reach out, right?
Yeah.
Because we're
It's
connected
fun.
now. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much value, like intrinsic value from the impact that you make. But it is hard. Pay's not necessarily great depending on where you're at.
But that
Parents could be a
narrative,
major pain, right? They're weird
yeah,
and
depending on where.
entitled. Yeah, depending where
But
you
I
are.
think everybody knows that now. I mean, this whole notion of like, should
Yeah,
we advise young people? It's like, put it to rest. Like, nobody's going into teaching anymore
yeah.
thinking I'm going to be rich and well slept. And no, they're wired in a way, and this is not right or wrong. I have friends who are motivated by success or money or that comfort and security that comes with that. And then some of us are wired in a way where if I didn't have meaning to my work life, that'd be really, really difficult for me. It's just in my fiber of my being. I may have found that that meaning in other places, but yeah, you're right. That's one thing that's never in question. So if that, you know, you know, fills your cup, then it's the right place to be. And it, it's funny, like you said, like the pay or the salary is not great or high depending on where you are, but any places where it is, you're like, wow, teachers are getting paid $130,000 a year. You immediately look at the cost of living of those areas, and you're
Yeah.
you know what I
They
mean?
can't afford an apartment
It,
on that
right.
salary.
It's like,
Right.
okay, I live in a studio with three other teachers or something. So,
Hmm.
but it's one of those, even in light of that, that you can't shake. And, one of my best friends, it's really interesting how different we are in relating to work. He's a guy that I run long distances with. And so we get
Mm.
a lot of time on the trail, just him and
Talk
I,
about a
kind
lot
of
of
like you
stuff.
and I
Yeah.
hiking, but it's like this is a 6 hour run. So you get to talking about stuff, obviously. And same age, kids are the same age, like, but so many commonalities with us. But one thing that he's like, who he is he's told me one time, he's like, I draw no definition or self worth from work.
Hmm.
I just never have, and I'm not. Work is
You
a
punch
means
in,
to an
punch out.
end. That's it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. Brilliant guy, super talented, and it's just that's not how he's wired, and
Hmm.
it's interesting, just how we're. But if you are wired that way, I think it's hard to shake.
Yeah. And to be fair, there's a lot of positive comments in that Reddit too. Probably more negative, but there are people. I love my job. It's great. If people are passionate about it, we should definitely encourage them to
Yeah.
come in.
Well,
So
one other thing I will say about this is
you change your
oftentimes,
mind. You believe the teacher stinks now.
yeah, no,
Yeah, I knew it.
okay, maybe this is a long way of
Totally.
saying that, but I think oftentimes people's perception of the teaching career, who are not teachers themselves, is a byproduct of their experience with their teachers. And so
Yeah.
I'll meet people that are like in our general age group, and they're like, "You're you work in education? Oh, you taught for over 20 years? Like, how did you do that? Isn't it just like soul crushing, isn't it?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like,
Yeah.
"What?" I'm like, "It's so much fun." Like most
Yeah.
most of the time, I'd be like, "I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this job. Like, this is
Yeah.
crazy. This is."
Yeah.
And then they would start talking about their teachers, and they were like, "Oh man, like I taught biology, right? So biology for us was like we just watched movies. Like that person was checked out, and
Dang.
like, oh,
And
that's your perception
biology.
of this.
Man.
Yeah, like so.
Huh.
I
That's a good
think
insight. And I think one of the things it's not like we could ban it, but the thing that really upsets me, a pet peeve I have in education, is when the educators themselves, I don't know the right word, they talk so disparagingly about the profession, right?
yeah,
And yet they
time to
want to be
move on.
respected and honored, but they don't even respect and honor themselves or the profession, right?
Yeah,
That's a big problem I have with them. But okay, we
oftentimes are unwilling to adjust their own practices to try to make things better.
imagine
That'll be
that.
a trend for a future show because it's not
Yeah,
on the
okay.
list. I don't think.
Yeah, we should put it on the list. Well, book two. Let's go there. You're gonna do
Book
book
two.
two.
Yeah, signed with Corwin. So I'll tell you the story where this came from because were you've been pushing me, shoving me, making fun of me, insulting me at times that I should write a book
Did you
all
have a
these
favorite
years.
insult?
No, I can't even.
They're all good,
Anywhere
right?
near another. Yeah. But you've been
Oh,
just
they don't
saying like you
stick.
need to just
Okay.
write this crap down. You need to write it
Yeah,
down. I mean, and
yeah.
for years I'd be like, I don't want to write it down. I want to work with schools. I want to work with teachers. That's like I feel like when I stepped out of the classroom, it wasn't that I was leaving the teaching role. It was just dropping the walls of my class. It was a bigger classroom, right? I'm going to work with teachers, right? But finally, you beat me into submission, and I wrote book one. And I remember thinking, so it came out just over a year ago, March of 24, and we're in April of 25, right? And I remember before it came out, I just couldn't, I'm not an author. I've never done any of this. You've had whatever, 4 best-selling books, so you could kind of wrap your head around it. And
Three. I don't want to get too big of an
oh,
ego. Just three.
okay, 3.
Yeah.
That
And
fourth
you've
one
sold
did
more books
suck.
than me.
That fourth one sucked, right?
Well, I have 5 books. 2 suck. 3 are
Oh,
good.
2. I thought it was 4 books. But yeah, so writing this and pouring my heart and soul and really trying to distill 10 years of work and blah 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 blah. But I remember having conversations with you and some other friends and just being like, I can't imagine like my buddy was like, yeah, I think this is really going to resonate, just the timing and all. And so book drops, and for Corwin, it has to be a #1 bestseller. You have to sell 2,500 copies in year one. And it passed that mark. I know you know this. I'm just reminding you, I guess, that in like June or July, like a few months out, it was just
Hmm. Less than
right.
6 months.
And it just hasn't stopped. I mean, the interest in how well it's been received. And through that, of course, I've had the conversations and the book studies with schools all over the world. It's just been phenomenal. And what's really interesting about that is there's this commonality between the schools, regardless of where they are, of this
Hmm.
no executive dysfunction. And what are we going to do about it? And this need to develop these skills. The overwhelming feedback through that has been the subtitle of my books. Part of it says grades 3 through 12. And K1, 2 have always, in some ways, felt left out. And part of those book studies, and what's interesting about that is that the K1, 2 teachers are all the people who were like, yes, executive functioning is like the only thing we should be teaching, especially in these grades. And so it's this really interesting dynamic where they were the first to sign up for a book study. They were super excited, and then they read it, and I just tried to speak from my area of expertise, which is I've never worked in K1, 2. And with organized binder work, 3 through 12, I've been doing for years. So I didn't want my first book to be disingenuous. So I just kind of put a flag in the ground and said grades 3 through 12. Well, last month I had the epiphany of like, people are literally asking, are you going to write a second book for grades K through 2? And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't have that. And then one day it just struck me. I need to co-author this book with my dear friend, Sarah Oberly, who's deeply rooted in the science of learning movement, knows her stuff, just finished her dissertation, and has taught in the K1, 2 space for 20-something years.
Perfect.
And so I was like, hey. And I literally the whole time, people like even Corwin, my publisher's been asking like, when's the next project? When you? And I'm like, it's not on it. I have no idea. It's not. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks one day, like freight train. I was like, oh my God. And I got fired up with it, just like book 1. Reached out to her. Sarah said, I would love to. Reached out to Corwin. They said, we love the idea. And so we signed last week, and now we're starting the project. I'm really excited to take book 1 and then translate it into that K1, 2 context, because the one thing I've also learned is pre-K, K1, 2, that little short 3-4 years is more dynamic than any other part of the process through K-12, right? I mean, you sit down with K1, 2, team of teachers. I've done this on Zoom or in person, and you learn about, we'll have these conversations about translating this executive functioning work into their realm. What's going on in kinder compared to grade 2, it's like a
Different
quantum,
world.
yes, so different world. So yeah, book 2's coming, man. I'm super excited about it. I'm also, intimidated to jump back into writing a book, but that'll work
You know
itself
what I
out.
told you to do?
No, that's not me. It just takes time, man. It
You'd
for
be done
me
in 10 seconds. No.
hours.
Do you have a
So
target? I know you haven't started, but do you have a target like launch date that you want to work toward?
yeah, we have a 6-month plan
Dang,
to have
really?
it written. So that probably means
Drafted,
it.
not launched.
Yeah, I would imagine the drop date will be similar to my book 1. I'm not entirely sure. We meet, what's today? I think it's Wednesday this week.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. I forget. We have our first author meeting with our editorial team. And I'm super excited because it's the exact same folks that I worked with for book 1, and they were unbelievable. I grew so much through that process. It definitely wasn't easy, but so I'm excited. I think this is going to really serve a need and provide a resource that people are looking for
Right.
globally. So
Right.
I'm excited.
And if it's done like 6 months, just in time for Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa,
Well, if it can be published that quick, I don't know.
we'll see.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think
Okay.
if we hit our deadline in 6 months, they
It'll take
wouldn't
a little
turn
more
it
time to
around.
produce.
Yeah,
Should I
which is
expect
good.
you?
I like the runway for a launch,
Yeah,
getting the
yeah,
word
yeah.
out.
Do you see you and Sarah coming in for a little book marketing boot camp over here.
With you, yeah, of course. I mean,
Ruckus
I
Maker
already got
HQ.
my Ruckus Maker book launch 101 on book one, and yeah, I want to actually have that conversation with you because I think that, well, I know that large publishing houses don't seem to get it. Which, I mean, my publisher asked you to give a webinar to their office about how to launch a book, but I learned so much, and I still am. And I approached writing the book. I know I've told you this, that the first 50% was writing the book and publishing it and getting it out there, and then the
Yeah.
second 50 is that nobody cares about your book if they don't know about your book. It's
Yeah,
not
man.
going to help teachers and families and kids if they don't know. And so I've tried to make myself a student of that process, starting with you way back and just continuing to learn. I've learned a ton, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be coming in for a little boot camp.
Sweet. I'd
You'll
say
like it.
1090, 10% doing the book, 90% marketing. But
I want to start actually different this year, this time, start the launch now. Like this is happening.
all right.
And,
Well, you and Sarah should come in May then. I'm not messing around either. Like, you
come
really should.
in May.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
We
she's
can
right
get-
in Delaware, so that's easy. I
Oh.
just need to get over to the East Coast.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, cool. We kind of been talking for a while, so I think we're good. Can we save some of the trends that you have for the next
Yeah.
one? Is that cool?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, that's it. That's the Ruckus Cast today, Ruckus Pod. Thanks for joining. Any
Boom.
last words?
No. Always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah.
Wish it was in
absolutely.
person.
Yeah.
Go Bobbies, and you got it.
Hey, Ruckus Maker, thanks again for pressing play. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I enjoyed recording it. And before you go, if today's episode shifted something for you, where you want to do school different or you have a new idea about education, then I want to invite you to subscribe to ruckusmakers.news. That's our newsletter. And you get 3 new opportunities to do school different every week sent to your inbox. It's trusted by over 5,000 school leaders. And if you want to reimagine education within a traditional setting so that you could create a campus experience worth showing up for, subscribe for free at ruckusmakers.news.